Well, my name is Barry Loveland, and I use the pronouns he, him, his. Um, and I'm here with Rebekah Balmer. Um, and we are here on behalf of the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania History Project. Today's date is March 2nd, 2022. Um, and we are here for an oral history interview with Rebekah. This interview is taking place over Zoom. And so Rebekah, do we have your permission to record the interview today?
Yes, you do.
Okay, great. And as I mentioned, we have a consent form for you to read and read over and sign at the end of the interview.
Okay.
So first of all, if you could please say and spell your full name and give your pronouns.
Yeah, so my name is Rebekah Balmer. It's spelled Rebekah Balmer, and my pronouns are she, her.
Okay, great. And so what is your date of birth and where were you born?
My date of birth is November 2nd, 1988, and I was born in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay, well, so maybe you could talk a little bit about your family of origin and your early development, and talk about your growing up in schools you attended and things like that.
Sure. Um, so I don't know how much detail you want, but I have a visual disability. And when I was 6 months old, my parents took me to a neurologist because my eyes were wiggling back and forth. The neurologist was like, your daughter's brain is fine, but like her eyes are probably not. And so they took me to like a baby ophthalmologist and was like, yeah, like she doesn't see things well, but we're not really sure like what she can really see. So the wiggling was the nystagmus, if anyone knows anything about vision. So one of the things that happened because of that is I didn't walk until I was like 18 months old, but my dad would always say like you could like crawl crazy fast. And the doctor was like not concerned about it because he's like she probably just feels more comfortable like and safer closer to the ground if she can't see very far. And at that point in time I couldn't really like say what I could see or not. And so like as far as like developmentally otherwise like I met milestones on time. I went to Conewago Elementary School, which is I don't know, it's in Conewago Township. And then I went to Lower Dauphin Middle School. And I went to Lower Dauphin High School. I have an older brother who is almost 2 years older than I am. I have a mom and a dad. We all grew up together, lived in like kind of between Elizabethtown and Hershey, Pennsylvania, in a little place called the Village of Deodate. So a very small area next to some corn fields and cow fields and stuff. But I mean, like, besides my visual disability, had a pretty normal growing up. I did dance. I started ballet when I was in kindergarten and did that all through 12th grade. Did jazz, tap, hip hop. I played the violin for a few amount of years. Um, I grew up with both sets of grandparents for a while. I'm not sure what else you want to know.
Did you have any feel, or did you at some point decide that your sexual orientation was something that you were aware of?
Sure. So I mean, I can definitely talk about that. So I knew I liked girls in fourth grade. But at that point in time, like people weren't talking about being gay. People like didn't even say the word gay, and I didn't know what it meant. Like I just knew that all of my friends were like, "Ooh, that boy's cute." And I was just thinking, well, I think you're cute, so something must be wrong with me. Um, and I first came out to my parents when I was in 12th, or when I was 12, not 12th grade, when I was 12, on the way to church, because that's when everyone should come out to their parents. And, I told them, I was like, hey, mom, dad, like, I think I like girls. And they were like, okay, well, we love you no matter what. So that's fine. Which at the time I felt like was a good response, but now as an adult, I realized wasn't super great, because they never then brought it up or talked to me about it after that. Like after they said, we love you no matter what, like that was kind of the end of the conversation. And so I think because of that, I then kind of like thought maybe, okay, well, something is wrong, like because my parents aren't talking about this, and no one else I know likes girls. So I kind of I guess I never really came out of the closet, because I kind of just told my parents. I never really told any of my friends. Again, my friends were all like, ooh, this boy is cute, and I'm like, I like you instead. And so I had some boyfriends. In ninth grade, I had a girlfriend for like a week, and then she was like 2 years older than I was. And of course, like when she broke up with me for her ex-boyfriend, it was the end of the world at 14. um, and then I started going to counseling for an eating disorder. And also on my like intake form, I remember specifically writing like confused about my sexuality or something. And I had been going to counseling for a few months. And one day my therapist was just like, Rebekah, like, I am confused as to why you are confused about your sexual orientation. Like, everything you're saying to me, everything you think, everything you feel like leads me to believe that you know who you are. And I broke down and I was like, you're right. I do know who I am, and I'm scared shitless of how the world is going to treat me and respond to me. And she was like, all right, well, let's talk about that then. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that then, I guess. So that night, or after that therapy session on the ride home, I told my dad, I was like, hey, dad, I'm a lesbian. And he was like, okay, well, I've told you before, like, I love you no matter what, like, please let me know how I can support you. And I was like, okay. And so as the difference between 12 and 16, besides like the internet, right, was also like I knew how to find resources for myself at 16. So I got on the internet and I Googled like gay youth groups and like gay resources, and like I found common roads that way. And so I then said, and my dad was like, let's not tell your mom like just yet, like let's not tell her you're gay yet. And I'm like, okay, whatever. um and and so I found common roads, and I brought the information to my dad, and I said, hey, look, I found this group. It meets in Harrisburg on Friday nights. It's like just for gay kids. Like, do you think, and I don't drive with my visual disability, so I was like, do you think you could take me? And he was like, sure, no problem. So he drove me the first night. He met with the director. I think his name was Eric, the person before Michelle. Um, and basically being like, is this legit? Is my daughter going to be safe here? Like, what is this? Like, what is happening here? And obviously, like, the director put my dad at ease, and my dad was like, okay, I'll be back in 2 hours. And so that kind of like started me being involved in common roads. I went pretty much every Friday night. They had like they were having like a sleepover. I specifically remember like 2 weeks after I like started going. And so I went to that and hung out with people, and like I can remember like 3 people I met. Like that's pretty much it. I remember meeting this kid named Aaron, this girl named Catherine, and this girl named Tila. Um, and I remember Catherine and Tila went to like some private Harrisburg school or something. But so anyway, there was the sleepover, and I remember my dad picked me up, and my mom was with, and we were on the way home, and I was like talking about the sleepover and like, Aaron and his boyfriend and Kat and her girlfriend and blah 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 blah. My mom was just like, "Is everyone gay there?" And I was just like, well, yeah, actually, it's like a youth group kind of thing, like for gay kids. And my mom was like, are you gay? And I was like, yep, yes, I am. And then she went through this whole like, what did I do wrong? Like, and she didn't respond poorly. But it also wasn't like the best response either, because she wanted like research. She wanted like facts, like why was her daughter gay? And then she really struggled with like her coworkers, because like I was a senior. When I became a senior, I got like senior pictures taken, and one was on her desk at work, and her coworkers would be like, "Oh, your daughter is so beautiful. Like, I bet you have to keep the men away from her." And my mom is just like, what am I supposed to say? Like, do I say you're gay? Do I say, oh yeah, like gotta keep them away? And so she went through her own like coming out process as a parent too, which I think was hard for her. But ultimately, like my parents were really like accepting, and I went to Common Roads and helped with like the pride parades and everything, like up until going to college. And then even, if I was home for breaks or something like that, I would try and go. And so, and I still talk to Michelle every once in a while. She's actually the one that got me set up with this. So
Yeah, that's great. I'm wondering, what was that experience like for you the first time that you went there? Was it really kind of a eye-opening experience, since you had not had a lot of exposure to other gay people?
yeah, um so I knew like some gay kids in my high school, but I wasn't really like friends with them. And so when I went to Common Roads, it was just like, it was this big feeling of like, I don't have to feel alone anymore. Um, because that was one of the things that I really struggled with, was like, I'm the only person that is gay, because at that point in time, I didn't really know the gay kids in my high school. And even when I did, there was like a whopping 4 of us, like as far as people who were out, right? Um, and so really just being able to like be in a group of people that were all in some kind of way queer, and just knowing that I wasn't alone, I think was really instrumental in helping me like be comfortable with who I was. And even then, like I started, like, I don't know how much people know about like human development, and like the stages of like sexuality, but there's like a pride stage right before you get to identity synthesis. But during the pride stage, you usually wear like lots of rainbow things. So I got like rainbow shoelaces and a rainbow belt and this pen from Spencer's that says like I heart lesbians on it and stuff. So I was just like in your face gay, like once I came out. And then I kind of like found the other gay women who went to my school. Some of them were friends with my brother. Like I said, he's 2 years older than I am, so we kind of like had some of this, ended up having some of the same friends. um but I think really it was just instrumental in being able to say like it's okay to be who you are, it's okay to love who you love, and there's nothing wrong with it, because, you know, something I haven't shared yet is I had a friend who tried to give me a pamphlet for like Exodus International and was like, you can get help for this, you know, and I'm like, what do you mean help for this? Like, nothing's wrong with me. But you know, I was going to like 2 or 3 different churches at that time, and one church was just like, you were not gay or you were going to hell. So I obviously like stopped going to that church. My parents' church, the people at the church were accepting, but the church like wasn't really accepting. So the like people who ran the church were not really cool with people being gay, but the people who actually went to the church, like I babysat their kids, like they had no problem. Like me and my girlfriend one time babysat like kids together. Like the people who went there had no problems with me being gay, but like the clergy people were like not really okay with it. But yeah, that was a very long-winded answer to your question.
That's quite all right. What denominations were the churches that you were involved in?
So the one that was like you're going to hell for being gay was like a fundamentalist type Christian church. It was like the Hershey Free Church or something. And then my parents went to a Lutheran church in Elizabethtown. And it wasn't until I think my senior year of high school, and I was very involved in youth group. And I think my senior year of high school national convention was in like Florida, and I got to go as like a youth delegate or something. And like that, I think was like one of the years where they were voting on like if clergy people could be LGBTQ. And then it was just like, well, we're just gonna leave it up to each church to decide on their own. And I think even now still, like, whether churches do gay marriage or not, or can have gay clergy people, I think it's like up to each individual church to make those decisions for themselves. I don't think like the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America has come out and said like this is our stance on things. I also don't identify that like religiously anymore, so I don't really keep track or tabs. So
Sure. Okay. Um, so at your high school, I assume there was no GSA type group, gay student group. Is that correct?
so we wanted to start a gay straight alliance, and the principal at my school looked me straight in the face and said, "We don't have gay kids here." Okay, well, I could point some out to you, sir. So we went to the guidance counselors, and the guidance counselors were like, okay, well, clearly there's going to be pushback. And had I known anything about the ACLU at the time, I would have like fought it and been like, you have to let us have one of these if we have an advisor. But I didn't know about that at that point in time. So we went to the guidance counselors, and I told them what or what the principal had said to me. And so they were like, okay, well, let's start a diversity club, right? Like they can't say no to a diversity club. So we started a diversity club, and I was the president my senior year. And so it was essentially a gay straight alliance called Diversity Club. And it was me and a few other women, maybe like 1 or 2 guys. And we just kind of like hung out in the library like after school, and talked about identity and different things. And when I was president, we ended up making these like banners to hang up on the walls for like LGBTQ History Month and stuff, just to talk about. And we did like basically like all the different months, right? So like Black History Month, Women's History Month, LGBTQ History Month. We would we would hang these banners up in the cafeteria to like was full of like factual information for people to like learn about the different identities, because we were diversity club.
That's pretty impressive considering it was a fairly rural school district, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very rural, and it was like 2006, 2007.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So did you face any kind of harassment in school that you that you attributed to your sexual orientation?
Yeah, so I had specifically in my American history class in 11th grade, I had, and this was where I was like wearing my rainbow stuff. So I mean, like, the experience wasn't great. Like, they, and I was using my like I Heart Lesbians pen, right? And so these guys were like, so does that mean you're gay? Like, are you gay? Like, you should just tell us if you're gay or not. And I was like, can you just like leave me alone? Like, we're not friends. I don't need to talk to you. Like, I just leave me alone. Well, they didn't. And I got really upset and I like asked the teacher if I could leave and she was like, sure. So I just went to the bathroom and I was like crying and I was like really upset. And the teacher comes in and I remember her like saying to me, like, well, this is your fault. Like, this bullying is your fault. Like, look at what you're wearing. Look at what you're using to write with. Like, what do you expect? Like, if you're flaunting your sexuality out there, like, can you really expect people to not give you a hard time about it? Um, and so that's kind of when I was like, all right, well, not gonna I'm gonna take these rainbow laces out of my shoes and stop wearing this rainbow belt and stop using this pen because I was just like, I don't want to be like harassed at school. And so like that was the experience that I had as far as like harassment. But like I found like a really good group of like friends who did support me and who cared about me. Um and like I said, some of them were queer, some of them weren't queer, which was great too. I did shot put, discus, and javelin all 4 years while I was in high school, and some of the throwers and sprinters and I became really close. And they were just like, we don't care who you like whatever, like you do you, boo, you know. So
Did you find any teachers or faculty or staff there at the school that were supportive?
yeah, so the guidance counselors, my specific guidance counselor and the guidance counselor that advised the diversity club were super supportive. And then there was an English teacher that taught 10th grade English and an English teacher that taught 11th grade English that were like super supportive. And like it was basically like queer kids club before school that like wasn't really anything. Like we just all showed up to school early and like hung out in this English teacher's like classroom, but it was like me and like 3 or 4 other queer women. And we just like hung out, talked with the teacher, and like, but it wasn't anything official. It wasn't a club. It wasn't like I think the teacher's last name was Wanger, and so we were like, we're the Wanger's women or something like that. And so we just found each other and hung out before school, and the teacher was like, yeah, you can hang out in my classroom. Like, I don't care. So
Did any of the other students from your school go to Common Roads, or was it just you?
just me.
Did they not feel that they needed to, or did they feel that they couldn't get the support of their parents to go, or that sort of thing? Or
So I would say one of them, it was probably like not supportive parents. Some of them probably just felt like they didn't, a lot of them were like very like secure in their sexuality, whereas like at that point in time, like I don't know if I really was or not. But also like I wanted to go because there weren't very many gay kids at my school, and like the queer kids I was like hung out with, like they like were their own group of friends. And so like yes, I was like friendly friends with them, but like if I was upset about something, like I wasn't going to them to talk about it, you know? Um so yeah, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them came like once or twice, but other than that, um, no, it was just me.
where was Common Roads meeting at the time that you were going to the?
On Front Street in possibly like a building attached to a church.
Yeah, I think that was St. Stephen's rectory or something like that.
Yes, yeah, because the sleepover we had was actually in the basement of the church.
Okay, great.
And I remember doing like a second chance prom thing there too in the church.
Well, tell me more about the prom. What was that like?
It was fun. I mean, like, who doesn't like to get dressed up? I just remember that there was like hardly any people there. And that it was like kind of like, it didn't really feel like real prom because there wasn't a lot of people. But I remember meeting this woman there who I ended up like dating or whatever. I don't even know where she came from or whatever, but I think at that point in time, like when I was in high school, I just dated anyone who was willing to date me because like the dating pool was so small. um so yeah, I mean, it was fun. I mean, but I don't really have any vivid memories of the prom per se.
What was the group fairly small or good size? How many used to go to the Friday meetings when you were going?
I would say like 10.
Okay, well, that's pretty good size. And what were there like topics or things like that that were discussed, or what was the format sort of the program?
I think it was like a mixture of both. Like sometimes there were topics. Sometimes we went to City Island and just like played in the arcade and goofed off and stuff. Sometimes we like played games. So it was kind of like a variety. And then sometimes like people came in to talk about different things, like either transitioning or coming out or just different topics like that.
Okay. Well, talk a little bit about college once you started going to college, and where did you go?
So I went to Westchester University of Pennsylvania. And it's funny because they're currently doing like a 150 years like history thing, and they just did the one on like the LGBTQ history of the college. Um, but I tell people I'm not sure if this was the right reason to go to school or not, but it worked out for me. So the schools I went to, I basically was like, can I be queer here and be accepted and be successful? And Westchester had someone running their LGBT program, and I emailed her and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Westchester. And she was like, well, why don't you come and visit? And I was like, okay. So she set up a way for me to stay with the president of the LGBTQ club for like 2 nights. I got to go to women's and gender studies classes with her. I got to go to like the LGBTQ meeting that was like a welcome, or was like a spring meeting that was like a pizza party and stuff. And so really like that's why I chose to go to Westchester, was because like I was like, I can be gay here and be accepted and make friends. And so that's why I chose to go. And it's funny because I emailed the woman who did the interview for the history thing, and I was like, you did such a great job. And I was like, I don't, I'm sure I've told you this before, but like, you're the reason why I chose to go to Westchester. Like, you specifically, this person is why I chose, because she was so welcoming and so like, you can be yourself here. And so and my college career being queer, I never really had any discrimination. I joined a sorority and my sorority was great. I brought girlfriends to my formals, no big deal. There was like an issue with me being new member educator for like a while, because they were like, girls are going to be like weird about having a woman queer new member educator, and the girls were like, what are you talking about? Like, we don't care. Like, she's teaching us the history of our fraternity. Like like she's not talking about being gay. Like, what does her having a girlfriend have anything to do with us learning about like when we were founded and learning our creed? And then I do remember like one of my girlfriends was in a sorority as well at the time, and her sorority was like, you can't hold hands with Rebekah if you're wearing letters on campus. And she was just like, what? And her sorority was just like not as accepting. I did not go to her date and parties or formals. She took guys. And so um I do recall, have you ever heard of like Repent America? I don't know. Repent America would come to our campus like once a semester and hold up signs that says like you're gay, if you're gay, you're going to hell kind of stuff. So we had that kind of stuff on our campus because we were like a state institution, so anyone could just like be on our campus. Um, but what we kind of did to like combat them was this Project Lemonade thing where people would donate money the longer they stayed on campus. So the longer they stayed on campus, people would donate money, and then that money went towards the LGBTQ club. And we sold these shirts that said like "Gay Fine by Me," and people would wear these "Gay Fine by Me" t-shirts when Repent America came to campus. And so, and you just like I just found the queer professors and people who were, I ended up majoring in women's and gender studies and sociology. So that's not what I went to school for originally, but it's where I ended up at the end. And so, yeah, and then actually I did my graduate work there as well, and I did my internship with the LGBTQ program my last semester of grad school. So I got to help run like Second Chance Prom, help run the Connections Conference, help run the drag shows, like all of that stuff as like an intern for the program that was there.
Sounds like a great experience.
It was.
Yeah. So what have you been doing since?
So I graduated from Westchester with my master's in higher education counseling and student affairs in July of 2015. And I got a job at the University of Delaware doing their LGBT programming. So bringing speakers to campus, doing their ally trainings, doing their LGBTQ 101 trainings, all sorts of like education around the queer community, supporting queer students. And then in 2018, they ended the program because they wanted to do more student diversity and inclusion. I have thoughts about that, but whatever. So they got rid of the LGBT program and moved towards the student diversity and inclusion. So I got a job because my degrees in counseling. I got a job as a counselor at a nonprofit working with survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And I kind of got that role, and it was working with specifically like high school students, like 12 to 24 high school, college, so 12 to 24-year-olds. And I got that job, I think, because of number one, my degree. I was a national certified counselor already. But I was volunteering with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program with their gay straight alliances. So I went to Newark High School, hung out with their gay straight alliance kids like every week. And then I was also volunteering for the sexual offense support, which was through the university. So this job I ended up getting kind of took these two volunteer experiences I was doing and put them into one, and then took my degree and threw that in there too. So I did that from 2018 to 2021, and now I'm pursuing I'm an associate license of mental health counseling, and I'm pursuing my professional license of mental health counseling. And I see 16 to 29-year-olds who are pretty much all LGBTQ, who have experienced sexual domestic violence, and I'm going to be actually starting a trans formation group in 2 weeks. So it's going to be people who are working on coming out as trans or questioning their gender identity, or who are non-binary and just looking to meet other people who are trans. And so I'm really excited to start that group in 2 weeks, because I think it's going to be really great for all of them to be able to connect, because pretty much all of them are my clients who I see individually. And I'm just like, y'all need to meet each other. And so my boss was like, okay, let's make that happen. Like, let's, if you want to run a group, let's run a group. And so, so yeah, so I'm like still doing the work. It just has morphed into different things over time.
That's great. It sounds like very interesting work. So what impact do you think being involved with Common Roads had on your life?
I think had I not had Common Roads, I probably would have gone back in the closet again, based on my high school experiences. And who knows where I would have ended up going to college, right? Because I based my college on where I could be out. So honestly, like it probably would have just been like, all right, well, I'm going to go back in the closet again and start dating boys again. And who knows where I would have ended up. I mean, eventually I would have come out, but I think Common Roads was the catalyst for me being out, accepting myself, loving myself, having girlfriends, finding a school where I could be out and queer. So, and like Michelle was such an integral part of that too. Like she basically was like my queer mom, like anything I needed, like I could talk to her about. And because I couldn't talk to my mom about it, and my dad was super supportive, but like, so.
Well, that's great. I feel very good to know that Common Roads made such an impact on your life, because yeah, it was such an important organization.
I remember doing a video for someone else for Common Roads. Like you should try and find it on YouTube, because like it is 16-year-old Rebekah in a pink shirt and or a purple shirt and like bangs. And I'm talking about how like, how I want a white picket fence, and the happily ever after, my happily ever after is just with like another princess or whatever. Like it was for some project, but if you like go on YouTube and find, like, you will find me.
I'll look for that.
So I'll find and email it to you, because I don't remember what the project was for, but they were like, hey, is anyone interested in being interviewed? And it was about, and some of the things I told you about the principal saying like, we don't have gay kids here, I told that same story in this interview that I did when I was going to Common Roads.
Cool. All right. Trying to look through my list and see if I've missed anything. Well, I'll ask you, I guess, if there's anything that you think you'd like to add to what we've talked about so far.
I just think like, I don't know when Common Roads was started, but I also think like the trajectory of my life and my mental health would have been significantly different if I had Common Roads when I was 12 versus having Common Roads when I was 16. Because I did have a lot of depression and suicide ideation from hiding who I was and hiding myself and pretending to not be gay. And so I just think like, if I had had a Common Roads at 12 years old, how much, I don't want to say better, because we don't ever really know that, but like how different maybe some of my high school career before coming out like could have looked like or could have been, when maybe I could have been more secure in myself and my identity sooner in my life. But I mean, if you talk to some people, like I am young, not now. Like kids are coming out in like fourth grade now. But but for the time it was for me, I think it would have been like really impactful to have something when I was younger.
Yeah, actually, Common Rose started in 1992. So yeah, it was around, I guess, then too when you were.
Yeah, it definitely would have been around, but I think with like I said, being 12 and not really realizing like, hey, you can look stuff up on the internet, you know, I guess, and my parents kind of just being like not bringing it up again. I just probably felt like it wasn't something I should talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure it was difficult to approach that subject. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, well, one thing that we do ask is if anybody has any documents or photographs or any other materials related to Common Roads that they collected when they were, there and have kept, that they would be willing to share. So I'll ask you that as well.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I have stuff from college, definitely. I wrote a lot for the school newspaper on like queer things. But I don't think I have anything from Common Roads.
Okay, that's fine. Um, well, that's really all the questions I think I have. And like I said, if there's anything else that you can think of, certainly you can email me and
I am gonna find that YouTube video. If it is still on YouTube, I'm gonna find it and send it to you.
that would be great. We'd
Okay.
appreciate having that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate your being involved in this.